Good morning, English 1. Happy Friday. You have reached the end of the week. You have made it. Congratulations. I'm sure you're like needing a break in the weekend by now, huh? Today we're going to work on 6.3. It's going to still look at Calypso Borealis, which we read a couple days ago from John Muir. We're going to specifically look at the diction, the tone, and the syntax, right? So we're going to look at the language, the specific word choices that he has, and see how those affect us as readers as we're going through the essay. Okay? So the first thing that you can do is you can click in and do the interactive. All right? It's just like a nice little intro to the lesson. And then again, down here for your objectives, we're going over diction and dialect. So it says, because many essayists, remember essayists are people who write essays, strive to be descriptive and informative in their writing, every single word matters. The choices writers have made to be descriptive and informative can be considered in their diction or their word choice, right? So what is diction? Again, it's word choice. Okay? It's about selecting the exact, like perfect, precise word to show exactly what you want to say. So it says, in order to observe a writer's diction, you must pay close attention to the words the writer used. So I'm going to give you an example. Okay, remember when we first read in paragraph 1, I think there's 6 paragraphs, right? And in paragraph 1, I pointed out to you that he didn't just say he saw multiple different types of trees. He took the time to list out these specific types of trees, right? Remember there was like ash and I think there's a willow. And so what that shows you, that particular diction, remember I said shows you his respect for nature, right? Because he took the time to observe and appreciate each individual type of tree. So when you're looking and you observe a writer's diction, you have to pay close attention and you can ask some questions, all right? So like, what do these words have in common with each other? So for example, like I said, with the example with the trees, I knew that they were all types of trees. And that's what made me realize when I read it the first time, like, oh, he didn't just like kind of go through, like I might say I walked through the forest and I saw a bunch of trees. He didn't do that though. He saw like all of them and then he specifically took the time to list each one out and appreciate each individual beauty. Are these words positive words or negative words? So sometimes you'll come across, I felt when we talked about this the other day that he had very positive diction, right? He was talking about how beautiful things were and divine. All of those words are very positive words. What other words could this writer have used instead? So sometimes you'll come across, that's kind of like, I don't know if you remember this from earlier in I think we talked about it last quarter if you've had English 1 before with another teacher. When you're talking about like connotation and the word skinny versus thin, right? If you say that someone, ew, they're skinny, it's almost like a negative, kind of like judgy type of feeling, right? But if you say like, oh, they're very thin, it's or they're thin, there's almost like a little bit more of like a positive connotation to that. Like it's more in reference to almost like being looking nice, right? Maybe being a little bit athletic. But if you just say, ew, they're so skinny, it's like that judgy feel, right? So you kind of have to look at the connotation and like what's the feeling that you get with those. Okay, so could a writer used another word that maybe had a different type of connotation, and so that's why they picked this particular word? Would using different words have changed the meaning of the story or the poem? Again, that gets into connotation. If there are substitutes, if there are synonyms, skinny and thin technically are the same thing, right? Pretty much. But the connotations that we have don't always make it the same thing when we're reading an essay or a story or a poem. Okay, so why would an author pick one versus the other? And that gets into that last question. Would using different words have changed the way the story or poem makes the reader feel? So it says, when you ask these questions, you will begin to learn more about the writer's diction, as well as the central idea, the writing itself. And then again, this gets into the idea about skinny. They're using slender, right? They both mean thin. They both are talking about someone in a particular way, but slender has a more attractive way of saying it. Skinny is more of like a negative, right? They're considered kind of like unhealthy. It's like a little bit judgy. All right, so we can look at some of the words. So he used the word glorious and the word fresh and beauty and strength. So it's saying, what do these words have in common? Muir starts his essay with the description of what a pleasurable experience it is for him to engage with nature. The words glorious, fresh, strength, and beauty come together for more of like an inspirational tone and a pleasant tone, right? If something's very fresh, like we always kind of want fresh like produce, right? Or fresh things or fresh flowers. Beauty, it's like aesthetically pleasing, right? So then when you look at these words, crooked, tangled, struggling, fallen, and hungry, not necessarily words that we would associate with positive connotation, right? More so negative connotation. So it's saying that in the moment where he's describing himself of being like in discomfort and kind of a little bit dangerous, right? Remember, he almost feels like a little bit lost and a little bit unsure if he's actually going to get out before the sun goes down. And that's when he discovers the flower. Okay. But all of those kind of like worrisome words are used before the discovery. And it says he's creating this tone about being like, a little concerned about what's going to happen to him that night. He's a little uncomfortable. And so he's kind of what he did, right, in the essay is that he set the tone using those words. He kind of gave you this, like, he was a little bit frustrated, right, and a little bit like, oh, I don't know if this is like going to be good. And then what happens when he finds the flower, and how is there like a shift in tone? So beautiful, purity, joy, soft, spiritual. And again, there's that emotional change, right? There's that shift once he finds the flower. Okay. It says it creates a tone of wonder and like even like a spiritual mood. Yes, John Muir was like a naturalist. I know we talked a little bit about naturalism versus romanticism, right? But there is some romanticism, a little bit of like that spiritual element in his essay for Calypso Borealis. My little arrow guy doesn't want to work today.